Welcome to my YouTube channel and to my train room. If you were watching a few months ago, you may recall as I finished my grain elevator series that I had shot several hours of scenery video and that I planned on doing a series for Rail Talk. Anyway, Rail Talk seems to have died already, so instead of waiting for an opportunity to present it there, I'm going to finish this series and present it on my own channel. There are many ways to build scenery, and although these days the trend seems to be to buy expensive products like sheets of pink foam, I like to use free or nearly free products wherever possible. So I build my scenery base with corrugated cardboard. You can't get much cheaper than that.
Turning the cardboard into scenery strips is simplicity in itself. Just use your X-Acto knife and a straight edge and slice it about 1 inch wide. It's best if you go across the corrugations. That way, when you're bending them to make the scenery, they retain some structural strength. You actually don't even need the straight edge, but I like to get them nice and neat. You can just do them freehand. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, it's only a very small area of scenery I'm doing. I think I have enough strips now. So let's get back to the layout. So anyway, now that we have our corrugated cardboard strips, we need some method of joining them. And what I use is a simple hot melt glue gun, hot melt glue sticks. I'm using the small size. You can use the big one if you want to. Scissors, an old pair works well, and a pencil if we need to make some marks, and clothespins. That's the easiest way of holding the joints together while the glue is set up. It's a lot easier than holding it for 30 seconds if you get impatient. Anyway, let me get organized and I'll be right back. Now, if I was building a significant size mountain, I would start off by putting in cardboard formers to get the shape about right. Even with this small area here, that can still be beneficial sometimes. If you recall, in my previous segment I said that the grain elevator will have been cut into the bank, so I'm just getting a feel here for the shape of the landform. So let's glue that on there. I'm staying a little way back from the front of the wood. This is what locates the building properly. So I need to stay a little way back so that there's room for the plaster to wrap around there. I've put in a pencil mark here, so there'll be a driveway coming in here. So I've drawn a rough pencil line, the approximate extent of the scenery that I'm going to build up. I think I'll glue that in there. I can always come back and trim it later. It's important to figure out what the shape of the landscape would have been before the railroad arrived, because the landscape would have been there first. If I move the camera back to get a broader view, we see that here the landform is slightly below track level, so it's going to slope up, and then this area here would have been leveled, maybe dropped down just a couple of feet. So that is why I'm staying fairly low here. So my plan is to build a very low rock cut, just a few scale feet high, and I might even put a rock outcrop in there just to give it some interest. Anyway, let me get back to building this web of cardboard strips, and I will Now that I have several strips in one direction, the next step is to take more strips and to weave them in the other way, right. More or less like a Dutch apple pie, and that gives a fair bit of strength. Okay, this is where the clothespins come in handy, so that'll hold that for me while I get on with doing the next joints. You don't need a huge number of clothespins, because by the time I get the second strip ready to put in, these first few can be pulled off again. I'd like to be able to show you this technique on a much larger area, although most of my landforms are already built, so this is all I have available. Anyway, the technique is the same whether you're doing a few square inches or 50 square feet. And with the cheapness of the materials, if you decide you don't like what you've built, just tear it off and start again. All right. I'm tearing that off because I got it wrong. And I think I am ready to get on with the next stage now. Anyway, for the hard shell, I'm going to use Plaster of Paris. I know a lot of people like hydrocal, but it's not available in every area of the country. I live in a small town in northern Michigan and I can't get hydrocal locally. So for the skin, I used to use paper towels like this. It's either Bounty or Brawny, I'm not quite sure which one. Doesn't make any difference. That was in the old days. Now, this is what I use. These are used dryer sheets. Okay? They're a lot stronger and a lot more flexible than the paper towels. When it was first suggested to me, my first thought was, well, I'm never going to be able to save up enough used dryer sheets. But then I started saving them, and even if you live alone, you're going to be doing 2 loads of laundry a week. Family, maybe 6 to 8 sheets a week, and it soon mounts up. They're a little large to put on in one piece, so I just cut them in half. Either scissors or a knife will work, and that's a much more manageable size. Okay, now as for the plaster, don't waste your time and money going to a craft store and buying the small boxes. Go to a home improvement store and buy the largest bag they have. And then in the way of tools, several plastic buckets, disposable. I use the large one for keeping the water in, and this size for mixing plaster in. A putty knife, that size works well. And a set of cheap kitchen measures. I only ever use the half cup and the 1 cup measure. I use the 1 cup for the plaster and the half cup for the water. As I said earlier, I'm using 2 measures, the half cup and the 1 cup. And since the plaster to water ratio is about 2 to 1, all I need to do is put the same number of scoops full of plaster as I've already put in the water. Always put the water in first, that way you don't end up with clumps of dry plaster at the bottom. Now, by putting the plaster in really slowly and letting the water absorb it, you can increase the working time quite considerably. But with such small batches that I mix, I don't really need to, so I just dump it in and then mix it up. So
with the cardboard web complete, the next step is to cover it with a plaster shell. When I first recorded that segment, I didn't realise until it was too late that the plaster bucket was sat right in front of the camera, making it impossible for you to see what I was doing. So anyway, I have quickly mocked up an additional area of cardboard webbing elsewhere, and I'm going to reshoot that segment on the new section. It's exactly the same procedure, exactly the same technique, even though the shape is slightly different. So let me get set up and I'll be right back. Well, here is my new section of cardboard webbing. This time I'm going to keep the plaster bucket at the other end of the work area, so it's not going to hide what I'm doing. I've already added 3 half measures of water, so now I'm going to add 3 1-cup measures of plaster and mix it up. Right, time to get sticky. Just dip it in, get everything covered, and then drape it over the landform. Plaster wants to be thin enough that you can easily work with it and get everything soaked, but it doesn't want to be so thick that you can actually see the texture of the dryer sheet through it. I didn't cut these sheets in half because it's a slightly bigger area that I'm working on. That one I just folded in half. So that's already got 2 layers on. The aim is to get 2 layers on everything. And I didn't count these sheets, but it looks as though I have the right number. Actually no, I'm 1 short, I'm going to have to get another one. There we are, that's 2 layers over the whole area, and that's all there is to it. What I'm doing now is just making sure that all the edges are sealed down properly. The last couple of sheets I put on, I noticed they're not fully covered, so I'm going to just use the rest of the plaster to fill in any gaps. You may notice I went fairly well down over the edge where my rock face is going to be. That's because the rock castings will stick a lot better to the plaster covering than they will to the cardboard. Well, that's all for this week. Next week I will start turning the rough base into something resembling scenery as I take you through the process for rock casting and rock carving. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again next week. Bye for now.